Hello and welcome to Maqam Lessons. Today we're going to be doing Jins Nikriz. Let's just start by trying some phrases. Repeat after me. Follow the second repeat that I do of each melody. And use your voice first, the first time around, before you use your instrument. Yanin, 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 yeah, 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 yalil, yalil, yeah, yeah, yalil, 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 yeah, yeah, yalil, 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 yalil. Now, let's try to identify the tonic and the ghammaz. If this is your first time taking one of these maqam lessons, I highly recommend starting at the beginning. Check out Maqam Rust, where everything is defined, Jins Rust, where everything is defined, lesson 1. But the tonic is the note that melodies resolve to. And in these phrases that I was doing, can you hear that as the tonic? And the best way to identify a tonic is when you listen to melodic phrases, you feel this note is unresolved and wants to go. And this other note doesn't feel like it's resolved yet. We'll talk about that other note a little bit later in this lesson when we compare Jins Nikriz with Jins Hijaz. But I just want to start by understanding that this is our tonic. So we're going to call that note 1. And let's sing another melody, and I want you to see if you can identify another note that is really important in this jins. So repeat after me. Yalim, 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 yalim. What note is ringing in your ears aside from this tonic? What note are you drawn to? Is it this? This note is our ghammaz. You'll hear a lot of notes. I even started with yalin, 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 yeah. So the melody keeps going to that note. So the next question we want to ask is, what is the scale degree relationship of that note, the ghammaz, the note of secondary emphasis, to the tonic, this note. And we do that by counting. So let's count up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we could easily say do, re, mi, fa, sol, or sa, re, ga, ma, pa. Either way, I find the numbers easiest because they help us understand our position in the maqam. So for right now, we know that the ghammas is the 5th scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's continue, and I'm going to use the numbers a little bit. 5, 4, 3, 5. 5, 4, 3, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2. 5, 4, 3, 2. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4, 3, 2, 1. Yanin, 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 yanin. And if you find some of these phrases to be a little bit too long, try to see the phrase from beginning to end, follow the first note and the last note, and don't necessarily always worry about the details. Follow the melodic rhythm and try to play or sing along with me. Yanin, yanin. You hear that 3rd scale degree? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yanin, yanin. So when you land a phrase on 3, it has that feeling. Yanin, 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 yanin. And then resolving down to 1. Yanin, yanin. Yeah, yeah. What scale degree is this note? This note of tension. You feel it wants to go up, right? This is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do some melodies that emphasize 4. Yanin, 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 yanin. Yeah, 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 yeah. I had too many phrases on there and you're starting to feel, right? It wants to go somewhere. Finally, we can resolve. 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. So those are some of the basic melodies in Jins Nikriz. I'm going to continue with a little bit of exercise on the interval vocabulary, just on the muscle memory for intervals we'll talk about in a minute, as well as comparing Jins Nikriz with Jins Hijaz, something that a lot of people find very confusing. So I want to set the record straight on when you identify Jins Nikriz and when you identify Jins Hijaz. But before we get into those two topics, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. You guys are totally amazing. I really appreciate, especially some of the new folks who have come on lately. The support on Patreon is incredibly gratifying to me, and it helps me keep going with these lessons. It provides the support that I need to keep going and keep recording. And you should also know, for those of you who are supporting, you're enabling me to make these lessons available for free to everyone around the world who wants to learn more about Maqam, instead of making a paid course. So your support on Patreon actually enables a lot, and I really appreciate that. And if you're one of those folks out there who has been enjoying these lessons, or you're here for the first time and you think it has a useful approach, please consider supporting me on Patreon for a small monthly contribution. The other bonus is that supporters on Patreon will get some extra practice lessons in different keys. But even if you don't care about that, and YouTube is enough, consider the link is down below for the Patreon. So thank you very much for that. All right, so Nikriz and some muscle memory exercises. Now, if you try to sing or play this, let's do this. Yanin, yanin. You might find that this interval, may be a challenge to sing at first, or maybe a challenge to play. Sometimes it's hard for people. This is what's called an augmented second interval, although it's not the same as the interval on the piano. For those of you who do read music or who care, C, D, E flat, F sharp, G. And the F sharp is a little lower than it would be on the piano. But we want to practice not just hearing the intervals, not just intellectually knowing how they're described, because those only get us so far. What really gets us to understand Maqam is embodying the melodies of each jins. These melodies that we've been learning so far are the melodies that are stored in the memories of practitioners of the music that enable us to improvise, compose, etc. When we compose longer melodies, we don't go note by note, or we don't follow rules. What we're doing is we're using melodies that are stored in our memory to build larger melodies. And those melodies are not just in our intellectual memory, they're in our muscle memory. They're in how we produce the sound. And so it's really important to spend some time focusing on that. And you can't do that just by looking at notes alone. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to sing this note, and then I'm going to sing this note. You have to sing them together. Yeah, in a little melody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And repeat that until the production of sound becomes easy, right? Sometimes the production of sound, if you're on an oud or a violin or a different instrument, and we're in a different key, you might say it's easier on one key than another, or on a certain finger position, it's easier than another. It's important to practice in different keys and different finger positions so that you start to develop multiple ways of muscle memory, so that you both have a strong muscle memory and a not limited muscle memory. So you're not, as you make your muscle memory stronger, you don't then create a new barrier for yourself, inflexibility. So that's why I sometimes do things in different keys. That's why I encourage people to play and sing. But let's just practice these intervals with little melodies so that we can really start to, I want you to have something to practice with. So let's do 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Ah, ah, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2. Ah, ah, 3, 4, 3, 3, 4, 3. Ah, ah, 4, 5, 4, 4, 5, 4. Ah. Then let's do something different going down. 5, 4, 3. 5, 4, 3. Ah, 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 ah. 4, 3, 2. Ah, 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 3, 2. 1. 3, 2, 1. And now let's go back to doing some of those melodies. Yeah. Yeah. Yanin. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Lil. Lil. Now, in that last sequence of melodies, I went above the Rammaz and I went above the 5. And I want to point out another aspect of this jins. There's really two options for continuing past 5. Now, those of you who know Maqam theory will know them as Maqam Nekriz and Maqam Nawa'atha. But rather than thinking about them as the Maqam just yet, I just want to think about what happens to the 6th scale degree. So I'm going to sing you 2 different versions and copy with me, and then we'll talk about it. Yanin, 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 yanin. And I used 5, 6, 5, 4, 5, 5, 6, 5, 4, 5. That is a little bit of Jins Hijaz car. So we have a flat 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The other option we have for 6 is Yanin, 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 Yanin. 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So on 5 we had a little bit of Nahawan, Nahawan, Nikris. But, and this is why defining things as maqamat and ajnas is a little bit challenging. And the more you follow me, you'll start to see the more I feel there's a lot of ambiguity here. We haven't really done Maqam Lekriz. We haven't really done Maqam Nawa'atha. All we've done is gone a little bit above the typical traditional area of the jins. And some of these melodies really feel like we're still in the same jins. So if I do this, Yanin, Yanin. It has a particular flavor to this Jins Nikriz. So much so that when I do this, yeah, you feel that there's some change. 5, 6 with a flat 6, Yanin, 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 Yanin. So in a way, we could almost say that there's 2 flavors of Jins Nikriz, depending on what happens on the 6th scale degree. I'll let you decide whether you like that approach or not. Sometimes I think about it that way. Flat 6, 5. Raised 6, 6, 5. This is going to become important later because that expectation of the Nahawandan 5 of Nikriz is something that Nikriz carries with it when it appears as a secondary jins in other maqamat. The most prominent case is an archaic treatment of Maqam Hijaz Kar, but that's many lessons into the future if you're watching this soon after I'm producing it. Anyway, just something to be aware of. Now, I think the most important thing to talk about is the distinction between Jins Nikriz and Jins Hijaz. And I'm going to compare those 2 ajnas in a couple of different ways. because it's very confusing to people. And the reason it's confusing is because this interval, sing it with me, is common to both Hijaz and Nikriz. The question is, where is it in Hijaz versus Nikriz? Now I'm going to start by doing a comparison that you may find unusual, although it's perfectly natural. We're going to compare Nikriz and Hijaz on the same tonic. Nikriz on this tonic sounds like this, like what we've been doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hijaz on this tonic sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So where was that augmented second interval this time? It wasn't between 3 and 4. It was between 1, 2, 3, that big interval. 1, 2, 3, it's between 2 and 3 in Jins Hijaz. 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 4 is the ghammaz. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you haven't yet done the lesson for Jins Hijaz, go check out that lesson, because then you'll get to see that in a lot more detail. On that tonic is Hijaz. Yanin, yanin. Repeat. Yanin, yanin. 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 We've just been doing Hijaz on this tonic. Now, hear how different Nikris sounds. Yanin. 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that's comparing them on the same tonic. But that is not where most people get confused. But I wanted to show it there because the distinction is way more clear if you hear it on the same tonic. Now let's compare it where it is most likely for people to be confused by it. And that is when you have Nikriz on a tonic a step below Hijaz. So here we are in Nikriz. So now what happens if I land on this note? Do you feel that this note wants to resolve down still? 1, 2, 2 is unstable, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, not resolved, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 1. I hope you're starting to get that feeling that this is unresolved. Because if we make this our tonic, then we have Jins Hijaz. And that's this. So sing with me Jins Hijaz on this tonic. Yanin, yanin. Yanin, yanin. 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 You're starting to hear this as a tonic. Now I want you to hear that Nikriz is different. Yanin, 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 yanin. Do you hear the Nahawan there? Nikriz is like Nahawan with a raised 4. 1, 2, 3 is the same as the 1, 2, 3 of Nahawan. There we are, resolved on this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if I do this, again, going back to Hijaz, now it's tricky. This is not an easy modulation. If you just look at the intervals, you'd say, oh, okay, I can just modulate from Nikriz to Hijaz. It's the same intervals. Or if you just look at his intervals. But if you understand it as melodies, and you have that visceral muscle memory understanding of it as melodies, you'll hear that the mood in the melodies are different, and the feeling of the tonic is different. What I want you to hear is, in Hijaz, this note is not a tonic. This note wants to go up. This would be the Nikriz tonic, but it's not a tonic. It's a leading tone. On the other hand, if we do Nikriz, I use the octave to help me, because this tonic, one note apart from each other, is very disorienting. And this note is not a tonic. It feels like 2 resolving down. So what you're going to encounter in the repertory is there are going to be places where you're not sure, is this Nikriz or is this Hijaz? And that uncertainty is understandable because that interval is prominent. So what you have to do is listen for where is the tonic. And the most famous case of this confusion is in Maqam Hijaz, which I've already alluded to. We're going to get to that. In the next lesson, we're going to cover the whole picture of Maqam Hijaz, which has Hijaz as a Sayr. Or maybe it's up already, depending on when you're watching this. But if I'm in Hijaz on this note, and this is my tonic, this note, and we have Hijaz starting on this tonic. Sing with me. Ya leini ya nin, ya leini ya nin. That's Jins Hijaz. You can take the lesson on that for the full picture. Ya nin, ya nin, ya lil, ya lil. So we have Hijaz Nikriz on this tonic, and then Hijaz at the bottom. So a lot of people get confused with Hijaz because it has that interval twice. It has it here, and then 2 big intervals. And people will say, okay, it's 2 Hijazes put together. But it's not. It's Hijaz with Nikriz on the 4th scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's what happens. You'll have a lot of phrases like this. Sing with me. Ya leini ya lin, ya leini ya lin, ya. Now I ended on that note. Is this note a tonic? Does this feel resolved to you? It shouldn't. You should hear ya waiting to go. Ya nin. So it's not a Hijaz tonic on the 5th scale degree of Hijaz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's Nikriz tonic on the 4th scale degree of Hijaz. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that Nikriz can modulate to Nahawand. Ya nin, ya nin. Ya nin, ya nin. Ya dil, ya dil. On the 4th scale degree of Hijaz. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or the Nikriz can modulate to Rust. Nikriz, Rust, 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 Hijaz. So I'll spend more time on that in the lesson on Maqam Hijaz. If that was confusing to you, then maybe repeat it a few times or go back. Sometimes it can be disorienting to see, oh, the tonic is here, the tonic is there. This is definitely an issue that confuses many, many people, including advanced practitioners. So if what I said was too fast or it doesn't make sense to you immediately, don't worry about it. Learn the melodies. The only truth is melody. The only truth is melody. Everything I say with my words is an abstraction. The only thing that really matters is repeating these melodies, learning the melodies, and feeling how one moves to the other, no matter what you call it or not. So anyway, that is Jins Nikriz for you. A huge thanks again to my Patreon supporters. I've been recording Nikriz on C. And I'm going to now go and record lessons for the Patreon supporters. Let's see, we'll do Nikriz on G, maybe on D. We'll see. Thank you all very much for watching and listening, and a huge thanks to everyone who's been playing these lessons on repeat. You guys have the right idea to play them over and over again. That's the really best way to get them to really sink in. So thank you very much for doing that and for your interest in Arabic music. Take care and have a great day.